9, I have managed to get myself on the screen. So hello, I've not seen you for a long time. This is really new to me, so it's a little bit bizarre. I never thought that I'd be teaching this way, but here goes. We will give it a go. Let's see how I get on for the first time. So week 4 lesson 2 we're doing today, the Prelude. Hopefully last lesson you had some idea of what the poem is about. Now it's a really tricky poem, I get that, so if you're struggling, please do not worry. Make sure then you have your fact book in front of you and a pen, pencil, highlighter and a spare piece of paper so that you can write and make notes as we go. First things first then, what I'd like you to do, have a look at the key quotations that are on your screen now, and can you have a go without looking at anything, have a go at answering or filling in the blanks. So you've got your key quotations, pause the lesson now and have a go. What can you remember from last lesson? Okay then. So your answers you should have, and in the frosty season, I heeded not the summons, happy time, the village clock told 6, we hissed along the polished ice, so through the darkness and the cold we flew, the leafless trees and every icy crag, of melancholy not unnoticed. Okay, so if you haven't got those correct, just make sure that you're amending them just so you can go on to revise these key quotations for me then. Right, remember then this poem, the Prelude, it's a long autobiographical poem. It's written in first person. It's showing the spiritual growth of the speaker. Now, from last lesson, Wordsworth recounts his childhood experience of skating on a frozen lake at twilight. His vocabulary and imagery is vivid and powerful. Remember, this sky is orange, the evening blaz'd, but he doesn't just feel happiness, he feels rapture during this time. Now remember, as a child, he's more interested here in playing with his friends rather than appreciating nature. Okay, towards the end of this poem, there's this shift in focus. He considers nature more closely, okay, maybe suggesting that as you grow up, you become more conscious of the world around you. Okay, you start to take more of an appreciation of nature. In the second section, he leaves the pack and he's alone with nature. Now, last lesson, I asked you the question, or we spoke about the first person voice and why this disappears towards the end then. You don't have to answer this, but just have a think yourself. Why does this first person voice disappear towards the end of this poem? Now, last lesson I left you with this question, nostalgia. What does that mean? And I asked you to have a go at finding out the definition for me. So this word nostalgia, it's this feeling of pleasure, but also kind of slight sadness when you think about things that happened in the past. So this poem has a nostalgic feel because he's thinking of his childhood and what he liked to enjoy as a child. And then we've got this word din, and when I go back to the poem, the quotation here, and not a voice was idle with the din. And I spoke to you last lesson a little bit about this having negative connotations, but actually when I listened back, I realised that maybe I didn't explain it as well as I could have. So, din is a loud and unpleasant, a prolonged noise. Now the tone has been shifted here. It's this constant hum of noise from the children, but it's kind of gone from something more positive to maybe being some sort of unsettling sound, because then you've got this volta of meanwhile. okay, the turning point straight after the word din. So I hope you start to understand why it's changing and there's these negative connotations that are coming through. Now, what we're going to do today then, in your fact book, you have these key quotations. And as always, we're going to look at one of the key themes from this poem. And this key theme that we're going to look at is the theme of change, the theme of transformation, if you like. So you've got those quotations in your fact book. We're going to go through and we're going to attempt to analyse, we're going to attempt to understand how each of these quotations can link to this key theme of change then. So the first one, happy time it was indeed, a time of rapture. Now hopefully you will remember what the term rapture means. Okay, you should have written this down in lesson 1. Rapture, okay, means this intense happiness. But we spoke about the pauses, okay, midway through the poem. What does this suggest about his state of mind? And then, why do you think he's enjoying this experience? So pause the lesson, have a think about those questions, and then we'll go back and discuss what I've put. So, what do the pauses suggest? These are my ideas then. That he's breathless and he's excited. It was a time of rapture, clear and loud. The village clock told 6. I wheeled about, proud and exulting, like an untired horse that cares not for his home. He's breathless, he's excited, he's out with his friends. Why do you think he's enjoying this experience? Maybe because it has this sense of freedom. That's possibly why he's enjoying it, but also if you link back to the context of last lesson, he enjoys being outside with nature. Maybe because he would often go out and be inspired by nature and also to get away from his family. Okay, he has this intense feeling of joy when he's in the countryside. Second quotation then, cottage windows through the twilight blaz'd. Now have a think, what feeling do the bright lights create? And what does this line make you imagine? What image does this evoke in your own mind? Okay, so the second question there is for you to consider just by yourself. There's no right or wrong answer. The first answer then, the bright lights maybe create this feeling of light, this feeling of warmth. Let's move on to quotation number 3. Oh, also we've got the echoes, the sun setting maybe, these bright lights. So, we have proud and exulting like an untired horse. What does proud and exulting convey about the narrator's attitude? And what is the technique like an untired horse? And what are the associations of this? So once again, Year 9, pause the lesson and just have a go thinking about what we discussed last week. Have a go at answering those 2 questions for me before I reveal my thoughts and ideas. So, proud and exulting. This creates a sense of power and vibrancy, of himself being like this galloping horse. Think about the fact that he's energetic, he's excited, he's full of happiness, he's chasing his friends. Okay, so he's got this power. Then when we think about the technique like an untired horse, it's a simile. So you've got the use of like there. And it's showing that the narrator has strength and youthful energy. Okay, it gives this idea that the boys are kind of untamed, if you like. They're still wild at heart. And also you could think about the fact that they've got no fear. Okay, they want to discover the world and they're not scared about doing that at such a young age. Then we've got the volta. Meanwhile, the precipices rang aloud. What is significant about meanwhile? Have a think about that one. Pause the lesson. Make some notes for me. Okay, it's the turning point, the volta, and it's used to show a shift in focus from humans, the boys skating, to actual nature. Okay, it's that shift in focus. And then this really difficult word that I struggle to say sometimes, precipices. Okay, what is the definition of precipices? You should have written that down from last lesson. Try to write it down without looking at your notes if you can. Okay, so next, of melancholy not unnoticed. What does melancholy mean? What is the effect of melancholy in this quotation? And what does not unnoticed show about his younger self? So you've got melancholy, it's this feeling of sadness. So melancholy means a feeling of sadness. And remember here, he's looking back at simpler times of youth. What is the effect of melancholy in this quotation? Okay, it refers to when the children were having fun. It shows this direct comparison between humans and nature, and this shift in focus from people to nature, that nature is set apart from humans. Then you've got this word not unnoticed, or the two words not unnoticed. What does it show about his younger self? You could say that nature was not unnoticed by him as a child, but actually the natural world is difficult to appreciate and understand. Maybe as a youngster you're out in nature, you enjoy nature, you hear the sounds of nature, but you don't fully understand the power of nature. Okay, the power that nature holds. Okay, and this question, what could he be yearning for now he's an adult? And I suppose he could be yearning for the simpler times of youth, the simpler times of childhood, maybe. Final slide then, the orange sky of evening died away. I want you to think about the tone. What do you think he's trying to say about childhood and youth? And what impression of nature do you have by the end of the poem? So when we think about the tone, it's a sad tone to emphasise his melancholy, to emphasise his sadness. Maybe he's trying to say the enthusiasm kind of fades as you get older. Okay, you've got this, the day's ending. Okay, the orange sky of evening died away. However, is it the day or is it his childhood that's ending? There's a question for you to think about. And then I've got, what impression of nature do you have by the end of the poem? So I've got some points here to think about, and actually it's up to you to consider which one you agree with. You might have something completely different, and that's fine. So is it the fact that the natural world is hard and difficult to understand, to appreciate? Is it that nature's vast and actually it will always be there, and as you get older nature doesn't change? It's captivating, maybe. It shows that as you become more conscious, you become more conscious of the world as you get older. Okay, you appreciate nature, you appreciate your surroundings more as you get older. Or the fact that nature can be complicated, and maybe this is a direct comparison to the simplicity of youth. So have a think about those, decide which one of those you agree with, and maybe write your own thoughts next to it, okay? What are your thoughts on those statements? So I managed to get through the end. I'm hoping this all makes sense. I managed to record, which is good for me because my skills in technology are lacking. As some of you know, if I teach you, I'm not the best. But well done for persevering, well done for sticking with this year 9. Good luck, and I will see you next week. Take care. Have a nice weekend.